What up, guys? It's Chris. Today I wanted to talk about my updated punt page and base file. So previously on the channel, I've gone over my punt page and I've gone over my base file for songs and song macros and stuff like that. Over the past couple months, I've just combined the two of them into one file, and I've made some macros, so it's kind of easy to kind of get everything up to speed on the punt page end of things. So I just figured I'd take you guys through the updated version of that. So here we are looking at our color picker that we've all become so familiar with, and we can see that this particular show file is based off of 6 different fixture, I don't want to say fixture types, so I'll say fixture systems. The spots, the washes, the beams, LED 1, LED 2, and our front of house. We can also see in the layout view that we have our color kind of picker A/B effect there. I'll go over all of this in depth later on, but this is kind of just so we have an idea of what we're going to patch and why we're going to patch 6 different fixture types. So now that we're in the patch, we're going to choose 6 different fixture types to kind of match our systems. I'm just going to patch 6 of each just to kind of give us a quick overview of everything, but still enough fixtures to kind of spread effects and things across. So real quick, I'm just going to patch some spots, and I'm going to choose different ones than from what I have here. All right, so now that everything's patched, I'm just going to make some groups really quick, and then I'm going to kind of spread some things out in MA2 just so we can kind of play along and we can see what's going on. All right, now that 3D is all kind of squared away, we can just check that all of our fixtures are kind of laid out the way we want them to be. So our spots, we have our washes kind of in the center, our beams, our front of house fixtures, and then we have LED group 1 and LED group 2. I probably should have started off with this, but I didn't, so we're just kind of going to shove it in the middle of this video here. Down in the description below, I've attached like a little PDF to kind of explain how to use this show file. So if we just kind of take a quick look at it, we can see that we've saved the show file, we've patched our fixtures, we've made our groups, and now we're on to step 4, If we take a look at screen 2 in our programmer, we can see a few presets that are yellow. We want to populate those with all of our fixture types. Just a couple notes there, and I do have a macro that can help us make these color presets very quickly. So just to take a quick look at that, I am going to start with I'm going to be in this color window here, and I'm just going to delete this matrix. We're going to bring up a macro window, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down until I see it. It's called Color Create and Label version 8. The difference between this version and the version in the last video that I had made is basically just a few colors. I think I've added light green, light blue, and that's it. So real quick, we can use this macro for all of our fixture types except our beams. We'll have to manually kind of merge those presets together. But just real quick, we'll start off at fixture 101, and because color presets are global, I only have to do one fixture. You could type in 101 through 106 if you wanted to, but it's 6 to 1. This macro does take a little bit of time. It does have about 500 lines, so it'll just take a little bit, and we'll do this for all of our fixture types except the beams, and then come back. Now that my color presets are all squared away with all my fixture types, I'm going to build the rest of the presets for all my fixture types before we run the macro. All right, so now that every preset is made for all of our fixture types, we can start running the macro to kind of update our punt page. So real quick, we'll go to screen 3. That is where our show setup view is. And you can just see, pretty simple, we have the command line, we have the groups, and we have our macros that we'll be running. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by updating our spot punt page. What spot group? Our spots are group number 2, and it's going to go do its thing. So we can see that they're now in a position. We're just going to really quickly check to make sure everything worked. So if I go ahead and off everything, go to my executors here, see our spots. If I bring the fader up, you can see the intensity is going. If I go to screen 3, I can bring up a position. So this layout here is kind of very similar to the punt page that I had before. I had just added kind of a few different things, updated a few macros, and kind of changed the color scheme a bit so it was easier for me. So we'll check a few more positions, and we'll do some focuses. Okay, cool. Everything's working there. Let's see how our gobos are doing. That definitely looks like gobo 3. Definitely looks like gobo 4. And that definitely looks open. So while we're on this window, you can see that I have a few other things. I have a dimmer effect. Right now, it looks like it's doing some sort of PMW. I can change the form down here. If I bring this, click this, go to, we can make that a sign. And then I can just kind of toggle through this and kind of make it whatever I want. Same thing with this particular Q stack. I can change the groups, the grouping of it. If I did something really crazy like this and I was like, oh my god, this looks terrible, I can always just hit my reset dimmer effects macro. It'll turn everything off, and it'll put the dimmer form back to sign and the dimmer groups back to 0 so that when I hit it again, it looks relatively normal. So that's my spots. I have the same thing down here. This is just a symmetrical dimmer chase. Let's see our RGB. Cool. Real quick, if I bring up our executors again, you can see I have these 3 speed masters over here, CFX. So that color effects, so that makes the RGB go faster or slower. So that works well, great. We have some pan stuff going on. We have some tilt stuff going on. Again, these are controlled by the speed masters that we have. Make this go real slow. Ballyhoo. We have a symmetrical ballyhoo, and then we have kind of an undefined one. If you have something of your own, you can store merge there or whatever. I just kind of leave that space for kind of extra things I want to do, and these are just kind of the basics. So cool. So that works well. Oh, let's check one more thing. So we'll go back to our executors, bring this down. We'll go to our list, and we can see just a little. Okay, cool. So we have our spots doing a random strobe, and our spots doing a full strobe. Cool. So everything works. We'll go ahead and go back to screen 3, back to our show setup window, and I'm going to go ahead and update the. Oh, sorry. One of the last things we should check before we go update the rest of the fixtures is we'll come over back to our executors, bring it up, and we'll go to screen 2, and we'll just color pick our way down the line here. We can see that everything's looking pretty good. We'll go just to our spots. Nice. Everything's behaving the way we expect it to be. Cool. So now we can go back to screen 3, and we can update the rest of our show. Updating the wash. Wash is group 3. Cool. So now that everything's done there, let's go back to our punt page view and just kind of make sure everything else works the way we expect it to. So if we go ahead and bring up our wash intensity fader, great, that works. Beam intensity fader, LED 1 and LED 2 looking good so far in our front of house group. Awesome. So let's go back to the color picker and we'll check. Well, actually, we'll keep front of house up. Just dim. We'll keep some spots up. So we kind of got everything cooking here. All red, awesome. All amber, great, looking good. If we do a wash in red, the beams in amber, LEDs kind of in that light green, LED 2s in the purple there. All right, awesome. Everything's kind of working. Great. So let's just keep everything kind of in this nice blue for now. We'll go back to screen 3, and we'll just kind of step through a few other things. So we'll put our, so we know our spots are working. We'll go ahead and pull that down. We will just look at our washes for the moment. We have one wash position. Everything's cooking. Great. We have our, oh, sorry, that's beam dimmer. We have our wash dimmer that's going well. Awesome. Good to know the beam dimmer is working as well. We have our wash pan sign here. We have our tilt pan sign. Pan sign. Jesus Christ. We have our tilt sign. And we have our ballyhoo. Great. Let's check our focuses. Narrow, wide, medium. Let's check our focuses. Narrow, medium, wide. Awesome. We have RGB. We come back from that. We're still in our blue. Awesome. Check our beams here. Still in that same blue. We'll go ahead and put these in a position. Dimmer's looking all right. Pan sign's looking good. Tilt sign's looking good. Ballyhoo's looking good. Don't really have a RGB for that. These particular fixtures didn't have a focus, but this Q stack is here for when fixtures do, like say a Roby Point or a Mega Point or something. We can see in our prisms that they're definitely prisming. I stored so I have a 6x and an 8x prism here in this Q stack. I just stored the same 8x prism over the two Qs, or sorry, over the two presets, just so it does the same thing. Awesome. Those are looking good. Let's go ahead and bring our beam intensity down. We'll check our strobes really quick. Beam, beam, wash, wash, LEDs, 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 LEDs. Awesome. Going back, we'll check our LEDs one more time. We'll check our LEDs. You can see they're doing their dimmer effect, and these are just patched as arena zoom pars, so nothing is really going to happen when we rock any of these effects or positions there, just because they're just pars. But our focuses do work as well. Check our LED 2s here. Same thing, LED 2 dimmer sign, that's great. Again, these are just arena pars, so they're not going to have any pan or tilt effects. RGB is looking good. RGB is looking good on LED group 1 as well. Now we can check front of house. Looks like our position took. Our intensity is looking good. We have our position here. We'll just off it really quick and make sure that it's cooking, looking good. We don't have too many options for the front of house. The whole idea is that it's just kind of a wash that stays there. We do have this little RGB effect, again controlled by CFX. And let's just go back and check our color picker here. Everything seems to be looking good. Awesome. All right, so now that everything's kind of working for the most part, let's go ahead and dive a little deeper into these macros to see kind of the magic behind what just happened. So if we take a look at our update spot punt page macro, right click it, we can see that it sets a user variable for our spot group, or kind of whatever group that it asks for. It puts it at certain presets, and then it stores these presets kind of at all and the spots together, if that makes sense. So this is preset yellow, the yellow preset, and that'll grab the group put it at the preset, and then store these two sequences. So these two sequences, if we take a quick look, are all the sequences are down here in our sequence pool. I've just kind of laid them out in a way that makes sense to me. It kind of reflects the color picker there, so you can see that I'm storing them in all red and spot red, or kind of whatever the combination would be there. Scrolling down in the macro, we got our colors. Now this will start grabbing some other presets and storing them on screen 3 here. So we can see this one's going to store Q1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our Gobo presets. If we take a look back on screen 3, we can see that in our Q stack we have 6 Qs, one of them is open, and then some 5 Gobo presets. So again, it'll take whatever you store merged in your preset page, and it'll kind of update that into this Q stack. Scrolling down a little more in the macro, you can see it does the same thing. We do narrow, medium, and wide. That'll go for our spot focus Q stack over here. Scrolling down a little more, this stores 2 presets. For our strobes, I like to store the intensity as well into my strobes, just so if I have one of my intensity faders down and I still need to strobe it, that'll still happen. So you can see here we have preset 1.4, which is our full, and then this is, I think, our random strobe and our all strobe. Scrolling down a little bit more, we can see our position presets. Again, just doing the same thing, grabbing the group, putting them at the certain preset, and then storing the Qs in the Q stack. Just so for reference, we have all of our 12 positions there. Everything's named the same, so straight out stage, will kind of reference the programmer here. So if we go to, we can see straight out stage, everything's kind of labeled very similar. After our positions here, we can see that it'll grab the group, store it at our full preset, store overwrite, and this is kind of the only instance that I use overwrite in this whole macro here, and that is to store our intensity fader, which is at a high priority so that it overrides, so that your intensity comes back on when you toggle a dimmer effect off or something like that. Scrolling down a little bit more, we can see that this particular sequence in the macro here will put the preset to open white, and it'll store it kind of as our white bump here. If we dig a little deeper into that, let me go ahead and bring up my spots. I'm just going to really quick put them in a position. We can see we have this off-white timer here, or this off time, but it's in white. So right now I'm just going to toggle it to 0. I'm going to go ahead and put these fixtures in a color very quickly. And if I come to my executors here, you can see I have white spot, white wash, white LED, white LED2. These are just white bumps. So if we take a quick look, you can see that I'm just flashing it to white and there's no off time applied. The off time applied is 0. If we go back to our screen 3, and I kind of bump this up to maybe 0.5, we can see that our off time is now 0.5. Digging a little deeper into this, we can see our Qs are 5 Qs of just each different times. And then the juice right here is in this the command section. So we're assigning the executor, and these are all of our white bumps here. We just took a look at those. And I'm assigning the off time as desired for me. So that kind of allows me to toggle between a few different options if I wanted to, have an off time be different, if I wanted to have a white bump be different off times. So that's kind of cool there, and that's applied over everything that has color mixing, so everything except the beam fixtures. So going back to the macro here. This is where it gets cool to me. So after we store all of our sequences and blah, 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 we are now going to grab the group. We're going to turn blind edit on. We're going to grab the group, and we're going to store the effect. We're going to store the group into the effect. This is like taking the selection of the effect. So you can see that we turn blind edit on, and the command is store effect 1 point, the name, and then 0.1. So the pan sign, if we look at our pan sign very quickly, we can see that it just has one line. This is the 0.1. If we took a look at our spot CFX, we can see 0.1 through 0.3. That is because this has 3 lines of data. So that is where the 0.1 to 0.3 comes into play. As far as the 0.1 in front of the whole effect here, I have no clue. This particular 0.1 here, I just know that you need it to make it work. Scrolling down a little bit, it'll turn blind edit off. So now that all of our effects are updated in our effect window, but we still have to make them active and then assign them here. So that's what this next part of the macro does. It'll grab the group, it'll toggle the effect, spot pan sign, and then it'll store merge SP pan sign, which is the first row here for us. So this is kind of and I think that should be it. Yeah. So this is kind of the magic of the macro. It just kind of grabs all of the presets that we have highlighted in yellow or the colors, and it assigns them to our familiar layout view or our familiar kind of punt page view with our options. Just to dig a little bit deeper into the punt page itself, we can see that if we do a dimmer sign, something like that, I'll make these narrow so we can see it a little better. I can change the dimmer form from a sign to, say, a ramp up. This is kind of the same idea that we're using in our off time Q stack here. So if I right click this Q stack, we can see that it's assigning form 8, 10, all these different forms at our effects. So real quick, if we come to our effects, we'll go to dimmer. We can see if we right click the form, this is the numbers that we're calling up. So 8 would be assign, 10 would be the ramp plus, ramp minus, 4 I think is, 4 is PWM. So things like that. I just have again a small Q stack of some desirables that I'd like to switch between. Same thing with the dimmer groups over here. We can toggle this on to 0, so it's going straight across. We can also toggle this to 2. Again, right-clicking this, we can kind of see a little bit of the juice here in the macro. Assign effect, all this stuff. This one's a little different. This one needs the command at the end, so /groups equal 2. And then, again, we've just changed it to 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. And I'm able to kind of toggle between these. Say something gets really crazy. I don't like any of this. This is looking terrible on all effects. Then I can just hit this reset dimmer effects macro, and that's my get out of jail free card. This macro basically will off every effect here, and it'll put me back in Q1 for both of my form and dimmer groups. I have a very similar macro down here. I have a very similar Q stack down here. So for example, if I was doing a pan sign, we could see I'm in the 0 groups right now. I can go to 2 groups. So now it's just kind of at an odd even thing. I can toggle it to 3, blah, blah, blah. And then I have the same thing down here, reset move. This macro will kind of off everything there and then kind of off everything here as well. Last but not least, I'd like to talk about the CFX effect that I have in this show file. This is probably one of the quote-unquote deeper things I have kind of going on. This is very Christian Jackson-esque. This is where I got the idea. I've just kind of built on it from there. So starting off really quick, we can see that our spots are in blue. This row down here will toggle our CFX on or off. So real quick, if we look at our screen 2 here for our effects, you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different CFX effects. All of those are stored on top of this particular color effects temp fader. This idea is a little different than some of my other effects per se. So I can choose just the spot to pan, just the washes to tilt. But for this particular color effect, I just like to have one handle for everything and then kind of an on-off switch, if you will. So I'm going to turn everything off except for the spots. I'm going to turn those on. Bring this fader down. Go back to our color picker here, wherever it is. And if I hit this red and this blue macro, bring this color fader up, you can now see we're doing a very slow color fade from red to blue that reacts to our CFX speed. If I go back to 2, I can live change these colors. So if we wanted to do maybe, yellow to magenta, this all works. The secret behind this macro is a little image copying here and there and everywhere, and it just copies a preset. So really quick, if we were to go down to our color presets, we have all of our RGB stuff, blah, 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 but way down here, you can just see that I have a high and a low. And if I were to do something like this, my God, you can see that it is live updating over here. Yay, Christmas. So that's kind of the idea there. Going back to screen 3, where all of the stuff is, we can change the wings of the effect. So right now we have kind of just one truss, if you will. I'm going to make a wings of 2. This should make it symmetrical. If I was to choose wings of 6, this would make it do that, apparently. Wings of 4 would make it do that. I'm going to go back to 0. Again, I can change the groups, make it group, 2 groups. I can change the form. All the different stuff you might want to have during, a punt, during a show that you're running lights live and you don't know. So this macro, again, will just kind of reset our color effects so that everything is, the groups are at 0, the wings are at 0, and we're back at a sign. All right, so let's take a look at how this works with multiple fixture systems and not just the spots. So I'm going to go ahead back to our executors. I'm going to bring this down, and we're going to bring the intensity of our washes and our LEDs up. We're going to put those in yellow. Okay, everything's in yellow. We'll just make everything narrow so we can kind of see it for now. And we still have spots on. We have our washes. We're going to turn those on, and LEDs, we're going to keep those off for now. So let's go ahead and bring back up our CFX, and we can see now it's just doing what we want it to do, the washes and the spots. If I go ahead and bring this back down, toggle on LED 1, bring this fader back up, now everything is doing it. So we can go back to screen 2 where our color picker is. Let's just go back to the big one. And we can see, let's do something like green and blue. Everything is responding to this, which is super cool. And it should work well for punting. It'll respond to CFX, because why else would we be doing this? And again, we can change the form, the grouping. But again, this does do all fixture types, so if you have like not 6 of everything, it might look a little weird. And so yeah, that kind of explains the color effects portion of it, and that kind of should wrap up everything that I've explained here. This gobo rotation fader really isn't programmed for anything. My plan is to kind of update that day of, if I have beams with prisms to update, or actual spots with gobos, stuff like that. I can update that on site. A few other things. I've left a lot of these bump buttons open for stuff you'd want to program on site that are very show or fixture specific. This is kind of just a general way to get everybody going with their punt page, or to at least get me going with the punt page. So the cool thing is now is this is still set up in our, this is now combined with our song macros. So we still have, song 1, 2, 3, 4, and all this stuff, but we can also jump right back to our punt page and then start punting away. So to me, this just felt like a more efficient way of, handling show files, kind of just having one show file to rule them all. And I hope this helps. I'm going to leave a copy of the show file and the instructions in the description. So if anybody starts using this and has feedback, I would love to hear it.